Welcome back to another episode of Keisha Melissa Speaks. And I'm so glad that you're here to have a conversation with me. And just in case you're confused about where you are, you'll know you're in the right place if you're someone that is currently building the next chapter of your life without pretending that you have it all figured out, because that's where I am. And I am sharing my journey of being in that season of figuring out the next chapter of my life, knowing that I don't have it all figured out. Um, so this is day two. If you checked out my other videos, I am a part of a 30-day um, video posting challenge, and this is my day two video. Um, but in thinking about what to talk about today and have a conversation about, I I started to think about the fact that within the fear that I'm going to say plagued me, and still plagues me sometimes to become more visible, put myself out there and, make myself known, the things I want to put out in the world, whether it be products or just my own creative thoughts, things I want to teach and share. Within the fear, there are all these different layers. And I started to think to myself, well, if I really started to think about it, like what were some of the things that were kind of hidden behind, like deep within the fear of stopping me from doing some of the things that I want to do. And some of these layers included things like comparing myself, right? But I also realized that I know that it's natural for us to compare ourselves. We've probably been doing it our whole lives to some degree. Some people compare themselves more than others. I know that throughout my life, even if I compared myself to someone else, and when I say compare, I mean if I'm saying, oh, this person is doing X, Y, or Z, and maybe we're in the same class or in the same situation, and I'm looking at them and thinking, okay, I could be doing this or they're doing that. That doesn't look that hard. I could do it. Comparing yourself like, oh, why can't I do it? Maybe sometimes you might compare yourself and say, why can't I do what this person is doing? But what I also realized is there are some comparisons that we take on from other people that we tend to put on ourselves. So it's almost like you're being compared to some type of like imaginary version of who other people think that you should become. And I had to take a step back and say, in what ways did I do that? And in what ways did that add to all of the different things that and experiences that I've had throughout my life, in which maybe I put too much pressure on myself, in which maybe my personality is such that if I don't feel like it's going to be good enough, then I stop myself from doing it, that kind of thing, because I'm taking on the idea of, oh, it should be like this, or that person said it should be like that. And so I had to really take a step back and say, yeah, I think that for the most part, that has played a pretty significant role, whether I want to admit it or not, but I'm pretty much admitting it. It's played a significant role in certain things that maybe I chose not to do or kind of have the fear of doing or not doing. And I really had to take a step back and examine. And so it could be anything from like, okay, you should be married at a certain time. Well, who says that? What is a perfect age or time to get married? Or, I don't have living children, but you should have children at a certain time, and they should be at this age. When you're of that age, you should buy a house at a certain time, you should have this much money, you should have be this far along in your career, or whatever the case may be. And don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of goals throughout my life in which I judge myself according to certain milestones. If I had things, I used to be a little girl writing in my diary saying, "Oh, by the time I'm 25, this is my life here." It starts younger, from 14, this is what I'm going to do. 17, this is what I'm going to do. By 22, I should be done with college. Da, 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 da. So when I think about the fact that I've been setting milestones, these milestones to put pressure on that have put pressure on myself throughout my life since I was a little girl. And then on top of that, we have the pressures from society, you have the pressures from your culture, you have the pressures, different familial, pressures from your family. Some people have pressure from the church they belong to. I don't know. Different clubs, organizations, whatever the case may be, it can literally become a situation in which it's a hindrance. It's a stumbling block, you know, in the way of your growth and expanding yourself and expanding your mind. And the thing is that I always kind of prided myself on as being someone that kind of, even though I strive for things, I strive for a lot of things. Um, I I also was the type of person that kind of, as they would say, march to the beat of my own drum. I did a lot of things throughout my life that a lot of that wasn't the norm. It wasn't the norm for people to do. Um, you know, the first time I traveled internationally overseas to Europe, I did it by myself, and you know, traveled throughout Italy when I was 21. I no cell phone, no, this is a time of no cell phones were in existence, but I didn't have one. I had to plan everything out. Did that for about a month by myself in the country for the first time. Don't speak the language, but it showed me a lot of things about myself, and a lot of people thought that was just crazy to do. It was a program through my college that I was attending. Um, and I won a scholarship to do that I competed for. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. But it's something that isn't something that a lot of people would think to do. If anything, they would think, why would somebody do something like that? But for whatever reason in my spirit, I wanted to do it. I did it. I survived, and it became one of the greatest experiences of my life. You know, years after that, I ended up going to become a teacher in South Korea and stayed there for 2 years. Of course, there are many people that do that now. At the time, that's something that a lot of people would jump to necessarily do. It's also something that was a great highlight of my life, and amongst many of the things that I've done. So even though I have stepped out and done certain things in my life that I'm very proud of, um, but that were maybe strange to other people at the time, I still lived a life in which I held myself to certain standards that honestly, would hold me back or make me put pressure on myself, specifically, finding a mate and getting married, things like that. It's like we think that certain things are just going to happen, and then we become very, very, very disappointed, and upset when it doesn't. Having a baby, things like that, making a family. Those are big things that you're just like, okay, I really, really want this thing, but if it's not coming together, it shouldn't be the case that we get so down on ourselves that we feel like we are a failure, or somehow we're not good enough, somehow we're ill equipped for those things just because it didn't happen at a specific timeline. But it doesn't mean it's not going to happen, and it doesn't mean that just because if it doesn't happen, that like I said, that somehow you're a failure. That is not true. But it took a lot for me to really kind of reprogram my mind about those things, and to understand that they're goals just like anything else in this life. It is a wonderful thing to participate in while we're on this earth. There are many other things that I'm not going to participate in, and I'm not going to make myself feel bad about. I do not feel bad about the fact that I've never been bungee jumping. I don't want to go bungee jumping. I don't need to go cliff diving to prove anything to myself. And sometimes I have to think about things that way. Like, if I wouldn't be upset about going bungee jumping, at least once in my life, or doing some other things that I'm like, no, I don't have a deep need to do that. Then if I don't feel a fear of some sort of sense of failure with those things, why would I put pressure, or why should I put pressure on myself to feel a sense of failure about other things? So it's like, you name it. um, there's just so many different things in this world that we don't have to try, and we don't have to put pressure on ourselves if we don't try it, or if we don't have that experience, because it's all just experiences while we're here on this earth. But I do understand having struggles, having goals, and having things that you just really, really want to achieve. And when you don't achieve it, you do feel very down and very low. But I guess what I'm learning is there's so much more to life. There's so much more to just our existence than the things that we might sit down and put on a pedestal in our mind that we feel like we have to do, rather than, and then it kind of takes us away from really enjoying just our present existence. We have a lot of good things. I'm sure we can sit down and write all of the good things that we have going on in our lives, and that shouldn't be overlooked either. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I have to remind myself of, but I also want to remind others of as well. Like, we have so many wonderful blessings, so many things to be grateful for, that it just behooves us to not get stuck on things, goals that we had of the past, things that we felt like, oh, that must have been for us, that had to be for us. Well, maybe it was not. Maybe that's why we face so much resistance in certain areas of our lives, um, in some cases. But nevertheless, I think that it's always great to do our best whenever we can. I like the idea of living my life, um, with as little regret as possible. But at the same time, I understand that sometimes when you're going after certain goals for a certain period of time, we could become so locked in, and so focused on something, and whether it's going to work or not, or put some type of value system on ourselves, that's unfair for us to do if something works out or not. But definitely, definitely, we need to be mindful of whether other people are putting that pressure on us. You might have a parent that's telling you, oh, you need to have kids so I can be a grandparent, or something must be wrong because you're not married, or blah, blah, blah. There's nothing wrong with you. Let me just say that. If you need to hear that today, I know that I've had to tell myself that, and I've been through those things. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are not a failure. You are not missing out on something. And certain things do happen at the right time. And sometimes we have to be open to the ways in which it happens. Sometimes we're stuck on a particular way in which something should happen. And maybe if we're more open to the different avenues in which we can, achieve a particular goal, that could take some pressure off of us from time to time. So, anyways, I would definitely like for you to, share with me, what are some of the things that you have felt an immense amount of pressure to achieve in your life? Have you ever had any instances in which you felt like a failure? I know I have. I know I have. You know, um, I have a whole lot to share just about my journey of, being someone that, graduated from law school, and the journey with that, and my life path. No, we might plan things to be a certain way, and then it doesn't work out that way, and we have to learn how to pivot. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to meeting up with you for, the next episode. And, just remember to take it easy on yourself. Take it easy on yourself, and we're figuring this thing out one day at a time. So thank you for being a part of my journey with me figuring out things one day at a time. All right, I'll talk to you later.